Bitcoin is the currency of freedom, the currency of liberty, the currency of hope. On day one as president, I will sign another executive order directing the U.S. Treasury to purchase 550 Bitcoin daily until the U.S. has built a reserve of at least 4 million Bitcoins. The cascading impact from these actions will eventually move Bitcoin to a valuation of hundreds of trillions of dollars. The world needs to believe that we have safely handcuffed our government and its ability to create money out of thin air with no proof of work.
Kage, politicians are on the campaign trail.
Yeah, it's that season, Mr. G.
Yes, and they're targeting crypto lovers.
Probably the easiest crowd to manipulate. With the campaigning, there's just a whole lot of crazy stuff going on.
Are you ready to talk Bitcoin?
I'm ready, Mr. G.
Do you like Bitcoin? Do you love Bitcoin?
I love BSV.
Satoshi's Bitcoin?
The only one.
Not the pretenders out there?
Nah, no speculations, charts and stuff like that, nah.
And not the one the politicians are shilling?
No.
That's right. This is the show about Bitcoin, and not only Bitcoin, but Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin. And we are here to lay down some uncomfortable truths with the people.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this, Kage?
I'm ready, Mr. G.
Okay, let's go. Let's do it. Boom. All right. Everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Centbee show. We are the Centbee hosts.
More like Satoshi soldiers.
Yeah, we're the Satoshi soldiers. I'm your host. That's it. That's what I'm supposed to be saying. Yeah. Cool. Welcome to the Centbee show, everybody. I'm your host, Lorien Gamaroff, and my co-host is Kage Ntshingila, the guy who's going to be tearing down politicians, tearing down cryptards. He's got a machete, Satoshi's machete, and he's coming to chop down the crypto pretenders, the Bitcoin pretenders.
Straight up, Ms. G. It's my responsibility as a Satoshi soldier, you know, with you by my side, you know. So, we have to just chop these politicians, man, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there.
Yeah, there certainly are, and we're going to be breaking them down. This is the show where we talk about Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin. Not many people realize that there are many different versions of Bitcoin out there. BTC you've probably heard about, and the politicians are really loving it right now.
Yeah.
But we support Bitcoin SV, the Satoshi's vision of Bitcoin. And that's the Bitcoin that's described in the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper. We don't support all these other cryptos out there. We think Satoshi Nakamoto got it right when he developed Bitcoin.
Yeah.
He thought about all the different things that are involved in creating a cryptocurrency, if you want to call it that doesn't get shut down by the regulators.
Definitely.
That actually can be commercialized. And can add value to people's lives.
Yeah.
So if you want to understand what Satoshi Nakamoto was thinking of when he created Bitcoin and what he wanted to achieve and why Bitcoin is the way it is, then this is the show to watch.
Straight up, Ms. G.
Yeah.
I mean, like we keep saying, you know, every week we try to iron out the creases, you know, the misconception surrounding Bitcoin.
Oh, absolutely. So recently there was a conference in Nashville, in the United States, and it was probably the biggest Bitcoin conference ever.
It was. I mean, given the fact that, you know, there was prominent people like Trump, your RFKs, your Winklevoss twins,
Edward Snowden, of course Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert,
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul was there. Well, he gave a bit of a thing.
Yeah.
Guys from BlackRock.
Yep.
So Bitcoin, at least BTC, you can pretty much say is mainstream. If you still think that this is a counterculture project, of course not. I mean, when the presidents are themselves, the candidates are promising that they are going to be buying BTC and pumping your bags.
Yeah.
BTC is now right in the middle of the mainstream.
Which is, for me, the best place to be, because now it actually will expose, you know, what BTC is not and what it is.
Yes.
So at least it will bring like the needed attention to the actual protocol, you know, which is the BSV protocol.
That's spot on. I don't like to see presidents promising that they're going to be buying BTC and all that and justifying its existence. But you're 100% correct, actually.
Yeah.
What's going to happen now is the more people that get into BTC, they're going to start realizing, hang on, this thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
And it's unreliable and can't work like cash.
Exactly.
And so what the heck is it for again? Is it really just something that I need to put onto a memory stick or write down 12 words and now this is my wealth?
Yeah.
I think you're right. People are going to start thinking about this as more and more people get in, and it's not just those that have drunk the Kool-Aid and are, you know, flying high on this idea of financial sovereignty and independence and freedom.
Yeah.
In fact, those are all the words that our next target is going to be, he's been using, RFK Jr.
Yeah, he's been saying all the nice words just to appetize, the Bitcoin community into actually putting him into power.
Exactly. So what are we talking about? Well, at this Bitcoin conference, there was a number of presidential candidates there. Donald Trump, you might know of, and RFK Jr., he is an independent. He was a Democrat, but now he is campaigning as an independent. And he is very positive about decentralized currency, especially currency that's not printed by central banks and inflated.
Yeah.
And so he came and gave a keynote that everybody was excited about, because he's typically been very pro-freedom.
Yeah.
Trump had a whole thing about campaigning when he first became elected about draining the swamp and all that. But RFK, he's spent his entire life, his entire career fighting the system.
Yeah.
He's going after big pharma and military industrial complex and that. And he rightfully sees that inflation is caused by central banks and governments spending and printing money.
Yeah.
And he believes very strongly that the US should be backing their currency in hard assets, they call them, or making it a sound money.
Yeah.
Something that can't be inflated. But one of the amazing things now is that he's picked Bitcoin, BTC, as what he calls a hard asset. In fact, everyone at that conference thinks of as a hard asset.
Yeah, Mr. We're going to get more into that because I find it a little bit more confusing. There's no way we're going to compare Bitcoin into hard assets, let alone gold.
Yes, it's the softest asset known to man.
Yeah, man. Guys, if you don't have the Centbee mobile app, you're missing out. Centbee is a global mobile money wallet app. So if you don't have it, you're missing out because it gets you to spend on all the things that you can't when you don't have a credit card. So yeah, just remember just to download the app, be able to chat with friends, split bills in chat pay. You can also get paid in BSV, easy payment requests, anywhere in the world. Download the app on the Google Play Store, App Gallery, or iOS Store. Remember to show some love, comment, subscribe. Mobile money on fire. Cool. So yeah, Ms. G, we're still on the Nashville Bitcoin Conference. It was quite a big event, and there were prominent people out there. So, it's important for people who understand it better to iron it out. We had the likes of reacting to Donald Trump's speech last week.
Yeah.
So this week we're going to be focusing more on RFK Jr. because he also had a lot of promises regarding him being elected and stuff like that. So I feel like there's a lot we need to focus on there. So yeah, let's jump into it.
Absolutely. So these talks, there's so much material there for us to go through.
A lot.
These are the most prominent people in crypto, and not even in crypto, people from BlackRock, Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
So this was a very important conference that more people probably than ever are going to watch and listen to what the people have to say, the speakers have to say about Bitcoin. They are taking note of this because no longer does it look like Bitcoin is just some little specialist thing that a few enthusiasts are involved with and a few anarchists or sound money people are into. It doesn't feel very fringe anymore. This conference was enormous, 35,000 people.
That's a big crowd, yo.
Yeah, it was a big crowd, 35,000 people. And Donald Trump spoke, he gave a keynote. RFK Jr. gave a keynote. Edward Snowden. Robert something from BlackRock. We'll talk about him as well in another show. We need to address a lot of these speakers because, as I said, this is going to get the interest and the ear of people who maybe haven't been involved in Bitcoin up till now. They've heard about it and they've thought it's interesting or scam or whatever they've thought. But now that these prominent people in this massive conference are now not only talking about the positive benefits of crypto in the way that they do best, it's now guys who are running for president. Donald Trump might very well be the next president of the United States. And of course, everybody knows, and if you don't know this by now, I'm going to school you, promises, promises, promises. Politicians always make promises.
Straight up.
And sometimes it's horrible when they don't fulfill those promises, and sometimes it's great when they don't fulfill those promises. And there were a bunch of promises made at this conference by Donald Trump and now RFK Jr. talking about Bitcoin and the promises that they are making about Bitcoin and how they are going to affect Bitcoin if they get elected.
But you know what I find more like peaking when it comes to RFK's points is that he was too specific in terms of his promises.
He was.
Yeah. Trump was more vague. He was just sweeping it on the surface, like
safe.
Yeah, super safe, But with RFK, it's quite scary because he was pretty detailed in his promises, and I don't think that they are quite feasible.
The likelihood of him being elected is very small. So even though he says a lot of good things and there's a lot of support for him, especially because he's an independent now, and his history is going after a lot of what the companies that people today resent, the big pharma or the military-industrial complex. He's made a career of going after these guys, and you could pretty much say they're all part of the swamp. And so what Trump didn't deliver, people think, well, maybe Kennedy can, because at least Kennedy's got a track history of doing this sort of thing. But unfortunately in America, it just seems that he probably doesn't have a chance, and it's more likely Trump or Kamala or whatever works out. But I still want to tackle RFK, because you would think of him as being somebody who is a little bit more thoughtful about these subjects. He's not a career politician. Nor is Trump, although Trump has embraced that and become the king of politicians in the couple of years that he was involved. But RFK seems to have this careful, considered view on things. He goes into things and he looks into things and he tries to understand them. He's not somebody who typically goes and looks at the surface and hears whatever people are talking about. He's not an opportunist. He's not coming into this conference as an opportunist, at least it doesn't feel like. In his speech, he comes out as somebody who has done research, understands what BTC is trying to achieve as a sort of digital gold standard. And he believes very much in that philosophy, having a sound money system, something backed by gold. And he talks about precious metals. So you would think that RFK, he's not just trying to pander to his crowd. He's coming out with integrity. At least that's how I see it. And so the things that he says, given that, if that's the assumption, if the assumption is correct, he's made some pretty obvious blunders. And in fact, blunders that are mirrored by everybody in crypto. Blunders in thinking around economics and regulation, and also, of course, the brute fact of BTC and what it can do and how it can function and what role it can fulfill. So he's just, coming in again. He's obviously spoken to a lot of crypto people about this, and he is now convinced, amazingly. So I'm definitely interested to go through some of those quotes and just tear them apart just a little bit, tease them out, and let's just see where he makes the mistake, where he goes wrong. Trump said that he wants to create this Bitcoin Advisory Council, and we said that it's not about getting people who love Bitcoin, because that's what Trump said. He's going to get people who love Bitcoin, that love the industry and not hate the industry, onto this little committee. And what we said is, well, hopefully it's not just people who love the industry, but also who understand the industry. And RFK, unfortunately, is consulting people who don't understand Bitcoin, but more just love the idea of it. The false idea.
And I feel like later on we're going to actually get to the point why.
I mean, look, he says a lot of good things, as always. This is the thing about Bitcoin, is that a lot of crypto, they rightfully call out the problems in society and the problems with central banking and the problems with authoritarian governments. So they're hitting it on the head, but unfortunately they've picked Bitcoin thinking that this is finally the tool that can achieve all that, achieve their goals and to bring down all the corruption and mismanagement. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
It's not, Ms. G. And the sad part is that you can see that some people in this space, they mean well, but the misunderstanding just throws it off and just nullifies all the efforts in there. And like we always say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Absolutely. That's right. So I think what we'll do now is we're going to go and have a listen to that speech. If you haven't seen our Donald Trump reaction video, what we do is we cut out all the politics and we just put in the Bitcoin stuff, the things that he referred to when he was talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And we take a look at that and tear it down a bit. So check out episode 42, Campaignamentals.
Yeah.
We're talking about more campaignamentals today. Trump was pretty overt in the way he was campaigning. And so let's go and have a listen to some of his quotes and see what we can make of them.
Let's do that.
Okay, should we get the first one?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Bitcoin is the currency of freedom, the currency of liberty, the currency of hope. It restores self-sovereignty back to the individual, which is the whole purpose of American democracy. It gives us digital property rights, which is the core of our democracy. And it provides a store of value that will allow middle-class Americans to live in abundance again.
Okay, so in that speech,
Yeah.
in that little quote that we've got there, what RFK is saying is that Bitcoin is all about freedom.
Yeah.
It's about liberty. It's about hope. It's about self-sovereignty. And so what is he talking about when it comes to Bitcoin? Freedom. How is Bitcoin freedom
Yeah.
and liberty?
Yeah, because a lot of times they've paired like all these terms. They go hand in hand. It's like an ideology that's been pushed, anti-government, freedom for the people, you know. But there's a lot of contradictions within that.
Well, the thing is that this is what is so necessary to mention. RFK is rightfully calling out the problem in the system today.
Yeah.
He sees that through fiat money, which is money that governments or currency that governments can create,
Yeah.
it creates a world where the people are not in control of what government is doing.
Yeah.
Because what government has to do if they want to do anything is they need to be able to pay for that. And traditionally, the way that you pay for things, if you're a government, is, well, you need money for that.
Yeah.
How do you get that money?
To your citizens, taxes.
Yes. So you got to tax your citizens, or you can go and borrow that money.
Yeah.
That's typically how governments function.
Yeah.
And if a government wants to do something, there's a new program, or they want to engage in something, what they have to do is they have to go to the people and say, we have a plan, we want to achieve this outcome, we're going to need funding.
Yeah.
So we want to have a tax to be able to pay for this thing. The people, if they are happy and fine with that, they will pay the tax. If not, they'll just vote the guy out.
Yeah.
If a politician comes and says, I'm going to do this, give me the money, people will say, no, we don't want to pay for it, and they won't tax.
And look at that aspect already. It shows people's decisions or maybe voting matters, because if the politician doesn't comply to, you know, the needs of the nation, let's vote him out.
Yes.
Versus a centralized decision where the people don't get to have a say.
Yes. That's how you do it. You either raise the taxes or you can borrow the money,
Yeah.
and governments can sell bonds and people can buy those government bonds.
Yeah.
During World War II, there were war bonds. In other words, the citizens could go and fund the war by loaning the government money, by buying those government bonds. And that meant the government could raise the money to be able to get a military together and go and do their invasion or whatever it is they want to do. So that's normal. Right? Raising money, taxation, or by borrowing it.
Yeah.
But in the world we live in today, governments don't need to ask for permission to do anything. They don't need to raise money for projects, things that they think are worthwhile.
Yeah.
They don't have to borrow it. They don't have to raise taxes, because what they can do today in this world of fiat currency, which is currency that's not backed by anything backed by any gold, it means that they can just arbitrarily inflate the currency supply.
Yeah.
And the way we see what happens when they inflate the currency supply is that prices go up, because all that you're doing really is diluting the value of the currency.
Basically, yeah.
And so what happens is governments fund wars and they fund government programs with inflation. They actually just print the money, they steal the purchasing power out of our pockets. It's an indirect tax, or a stealth tax,
yeah.
a sneaky stealth tax,
Yeah.
and they are able to do these things. So RFK is pointing out that Bitcoin is all about freedom, hope, and self-sovereignty. So by not being able to inflate currencies, we have now this ability to retain the purchasing power of the money that we earn.
Yeah.
And only if the people decide on something does the government act.
Which is the right way to go about, because the government can't just have a vetoed decision
Yes,
without involving the nation.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So on the surface of it, it seems this is a wonderful ideal, to be able to end this whole idea of fiat currency go back to a sound money system where governments have to behave honestly.
Yeah.
And if government wants to enact a policy or do something, they have to raise the money in the honest way, raising taxes or borrowing that money. So he believes that if we want to have a democratic nation, if America wants a democratic nation, we need to end this fiat system, because people are not choosing to go to war.
Yeah.
People are not choosing to have a huge military industrial complex.
Yeah.
The people in politics and the people who benefit, they're the ones making these decisions, and they're the ones benefiting by, again, stealing the purchasing power.
Yeah.
So RFK comes in strong. He points out the problem right away. And by the way, he's not the only one. Trump did exactly the same. It's typical campaigning. You know, he points out the obvious problems.
Campaign-mentals.
Yeah. So RFK is campaign-mentaling here. But he thinks that Bitcoin can do that. Now, of course, that rests on the false proposition or premise, the false premise that BTC is like a sound money or gold, and that's where he gets it wrong. And then also what he talks about with self-sovereignty really is being able to hold money and not have anybody take it from you without
due process.
So so take it without due process. And so one of the notions around Bitcoin, of course, is that you can hold your money yourself by just having
the bank.
Yes, you can be your own bank, what they say, although that's also ridiculous. Banks are not just depositories. And so the idea that you can now hold your Bitcoin, you can have it, you can control it, nobody else can take it from you, that gives you freedom and also gives you hope. Because now you know that what's yours is yours and nobody can take it from you.
That doesn't sound realistic, man. How are we going to have a system where each of us are our own bank?
Yeah, well, but you can't be your own bank with Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is not going to give you a loan, or it's not going to help you with investments or something. It certainly can't be your own bank. Okay, should we get to the next one?
On day one as president, I will sign another executive order directing the U.S. Treasury to purchase 550 Bitcoin daily until the U.S. has built a reserve of at least 4 million Bitcoins. And a position of dominance that no other country will be able to usurp. Our nation holds approximately 19% of global gold reserves. This policy will give us about the same proportion of total Bitcoin. The cascading impact from these actions will eventually move Bitcoin to a valuation of hundreds of trillions of dollars.
Here he now talks about specifically buying Bitcoin. So he says, on day one as president, I will sign another executive order directing the U.S. Treasury to purchase 550 Bitcoins daily until the U.S. has built a reserve of at least 4 million Bitcoins.
Mr. G, I mean, these are crazy promises. 550 Bitcoins daily. So that means he's saying it doesn't matter what the price is.
He's saying, I'm putting a number on it. I'm putting 550 Bitcoins that we're going to be purchasing on a daily basis from everybody out there.
So what happens if BTC is like $1 million at that time?
Well, he carries on, and at some point, he talks about how by doing this, by getting the 4 million Bitcoins, that it's going to be
reserve.
It's going to be worth hundreds of trillions of dollars. So Trump didn't do this.
Yeah.
Trump didn't put a number on it.
to it. That's why I was like, damn, that's crazy, because, dude, you made a blatant promise, which was like too specific.
Right.
550, there's a number to it.
If you think about investments right now, if you really thought RFK was going to win, you've already got a buyer out there that is going to be buying. I mean, he didn't say he's only going to buy it at a certain value.
Yeah.
He just said he's going to buy 550 Bitcoins. So, yes, I mean, this is just ridiculous. At least at least Trump being vague enough to say that all he's going to do is turn the US into a Bitcoin superpower.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as vague as it gets. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Here's RFK. He's put a number on it. He's going to be purchasing 550 BTC from everybody until there's 4 million BTC in this reserve. And, of course, you can just imagine how dangerous this is.
Very dangerous, because even if some may find it like appetizing or appealing, You know, I'm sure even in the BTC space, there's guys that are looking at it.
I think they're rubbing their hands.
Yeah,
They're
you
like,
reckon?
ready? 550, did you say?
That's crazy.
Right. So here we go, everybody. If
Jeez.
you're into crypto,
That's insane.
if you vote for RFK, he's going to buy your Bitcoin. It's worth it.
Now, Ms. G, you know what? I think even in the history of politicians, we know that politicians just blow hot air. I don't think that's any way practical, like even in the current economy.
Like I said, it's easy to say these things right now, although
Yeah.
putting a number on it is very specific. But if RFK ever gets to become president, of course it's going to then kick off the next huge mania in crypto, drawing a lot of people in. As we said about Trump last week,
Yeah.
this kind of rhetoric is just going to make people who normally wouldn't want to touch crypto,
Exactly.
who probably understand that it's just hot air and it's just a scam, they're going to say, well, you know, this is a sure thing. I mean, let's just get in
Yeah.
and see what happens, and then we'll get out once the rumors turn into facts.
Yeah. 550, Ms. G, I mean, that's a big number. But with that being said, this sounds like he's playing a game, like he's just manipulating the market.
Well, if he might not intentionally be trying to manipulate the market.
Yeah.
He does have his own Bitcoin.
Exactly.
And so you have to admit that there seems to be a conflict of interest here. He's, first of all, putting a number down. He's saying how many are going to be bought.
Yeah.
That is clear market manipulation.
Straight up, yeah.
Because he is now saying, it doesn't matter what the price is. There's going to be an order. You can trust me. I'm making a promise
Yeah.
that on these days, there are going to be Bitcoins that are going to be purchased. And so you can just imagine now people on these markets saying, great, let's do this. Let's do this, RFK.
Yeah.
Just tell us the time and the day, and we're going to be selling you all the BTC. And you can just imagine how that market is going to react to that.
Jeez.
You know, the price is going to go to the moon. But according to his promise, he's still going to keep buying.
But that again, Mr. G, you see, that's where my issue is, because, you know, it's not just a matter of him saying what he's saying just for the one-sided benefit of votes, but he has he's bought some BTC himself.
That's right. I think he says he has a significant amount of his self-worth.
Wealth.
Yes, his wealth.
That's crazy, because if someone is going to declare themselves having to own such assets, definitely they're going to be pushing a narrative that benefits them in the future.
Absolutely. You can't deny that.
Yeah.
And at least Trump, you would think, I mean, he has accepted Bitcoin donations through the campaign, but those aren't that's not his private money. He can't spend that.
Yeah, and I can bet you that he probably has like a bunch of BTCs bought up.
Trump.
Yeah. But he's smart enough not to declare it in that sense, because he's aware of the power that he has if he were to mention that.
No, clearly this is market manipulation, especially because RFK seems to have a stash of crypto. And I mean, so what is he saying? That he's going to get taxpayers to start buying the Bitcoin so that his stash goes up in value.
At the end of the day, he's only human. So he's going to look, where he's chickens need to, hatch.
Yeah. And also just thinking about that now in terms of who's buying this Bitcoin. Well, it's the US taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
All of the people in America are going to be paying to buy the BTC for the US Treasury stash. So that means the people who don't have crypto are going to be pumping the price of the people who do have crypto.
So that's like taking money from the people basically and giving it to the 1%.
That's all it is. It's just a wealth transfer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know how US taxpayers are going to be, especially those who don't believe in crypto and don't think that it is value and understand it.
Yeah.
Are they going to, I mean, I guess democracy, right? If RFK comes in, that's the problem with democracy, right? That you get your oppressed minorities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the sucking part, because there's no avoiding it. Every candidate who's on the podium is going to be talking crypto somehow.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's the flavor of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all these taxpayers are now paying for this BTC, and it doesn't sound like an insignificant amount.
It doesn't.
And so are the taxpayers going to be happy that money is being spent on BTC rather than other more important things? I mean, the United States now, has crumbling infrastructure and all that. Mm-hmm. I think that he really believes that if they buy BTC, the value after they've bought it will keep on growing and keep on growing. and eventually they're going to have an asset that can solve all of America's problems. I think that's what he thinks. Clearly right now, if he was to purchase all that stash, get his 4 million BTC, and now they wanted to pay off the United States debt or do anything, and pay billions on some infrastructure project, that means billions of dollars worth of BTC being dumped on the market. And can you imagine then what that's going to do to the price?
Would literally tank it.
Literally tank it. So again, just thinking about this sensibly, is BTC really the best thing that America can do with whatever money they have left to secure their future? And if you really believe that BTC is going to just keep going to the moon forever, and once these 4 million BTC are purchased, now the US is going to be sitting on this increasingly more valuable asset. If that's what you believe, okay, fine, that's possible. But how likely is that? Given that BTC doesn't actually have any fundamental use.
That's what I'm thinking, Mr. G, because people like Trump, RFK, those are leaders. They represent people, and they're representing a country. And that alone, has a lot of responsibilities to it. So it doesn't make sense for them to be pushing ideologies they have less understanding in, because this affects everyone. It affects households, nations, pockets, salaries, everything, literally. So how can you just make a decision if you don't understand, especially when it comes to how money moves?
Well, this is the sad thing, is that RFK thinks he understands.
Yeah.
He thinks he's done all the right investigations and background checks and research into BTC. He says he's spoken to very prominent people in BTC, and he feels like he's finally got it.
Prominent wrong people.
And unfortunately, and we always refer to Peter Schiff because he's such a legend, but he's did that tweet not so long ago saying, never before in history have so many people been so wrong about so much. And this crypto conference just speaks to that. We've got presidential candidates betting the farm on a useless token that they don't understand. They think they understand, and all the people they surround themselves think they understand. I would say you could ask a child, does BTC have any value? What can you do with it? Nothing. Well, then it has none. That's as much sophistication as you need to understand BTC.
Straight up, Mr. G. Because also the contrary in that, huddle, and then diamond hands, laser eyes, and then these guys come on the podium and tell you that sell. We will buy it from you. So basically, it just shows that it's all about who has it, and who is also willing to be the bigger fool to buy it. Yeah.
No, that's clear now. This is only going to benefit the people who have crypto and not benefit anybody else. So I don't know how he thinks this is all about democracy and freedom and all that sort of thing. It feels like this is something that benefits the few. I think the hope is that once the United States government starts getting into crypto and into Bitcoin, that it will achieve some kind of stability. Because now finally there is a massive player in the market that has committed to this technology and this token. And surely that means finally BTC is broken into the mainstream and has become a sound asset like gold has, and is now going to be here with us forever and truly will form the foundation of the new digital economy. So these are the hopes and dreams, but the reality is that once that 4 million BTC is burning a hole in the US Treasury pocket, what happens if there's a collapse? There's no assurance, there's no certitude that once the government is committed to BTC, that BTC will stay stable. Because at the end of the day, the price is determined purely by speculation. There is no fundamental value to BTC. In other words, when you talk about the value of things, if we talk about a commodity like sugar, people use sugar, they need sugar. And yes, the demand for sugar might go up and might go down. The supply might go up and might go down. And so, of course, there's nothing in this world that is perfectly stable. But at least when it comes to sugar, we all know that people want sweet tea or whatever it is they want. And they're going to be at some point in their lives wanting some sugar.
Definitely.
Because they need it. They want to use it. They might keep the sugar. Maybe they buy more sugar than they need because they know that later on they can take that sugar to somebody else and sell it.
And sugar doesn't go bad.
Yeah, you keep it in a nice dry place. Should be there for a while. But the point is that now we've got sugar that can be used, and we're going to store it, this value of that sugar, we're going to store the value, the actual sugar, it's going to be sitting there, and when we need it later on, we can go and take it and barter it or trade for it or sell it. So BTC is now sitting here, and we're thinking and we're looking at it and we're saying, right, it has a price. What's the price? Well, the price is what somebody's willing to pay. Okay, what's the value?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have any, because you can't use it, you can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
In fact, you don't want to use it because the fees are so high. And also, it's so unreliable because of the small 1 megabyte block. So you can only have a certain number of transactions per block, which is every hour a couple of transactions. So you can't use it, you can't do anything with it. So when BTC is sitting in the US Treasury and it's sitting in their pocket and it's just burning a hole, what are they going to do with that apart from sell it? And as soon as they try and sell it, all it's going to do is bring that price down, because there is no demand for BTC as a utility.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a speculation game. The US government is sitting with BTC now. The public are thinking, what is the United States going to do?
Yeah.
The government, are they going to sell that BTC? No, they're not going to sell it. Okay, fine. Then things are calm. But what happens if there's a rumor?
Yeah.
Like, there's a rumor
They could be selling.
that the United States government is going to start selling BTC to pay off debts or something.
Already that's going to manipulate the price.
Well, imagine the front run on that one.
Sheet.
It's like, okay, guys, this is it. The government is about to come in and start dumping BTC onto us. We better get out. So, the price is going to go to zero before they even move one Satoshi.
It's a mayhem right there.
Yes. So the conflicts of interest in this talk, unfortunately, RFK, come on. You're doing so well on so many different things, but unfortunately you've just completely drunk the BTC Kool-Aid. You've left your brain at the door, and that's a good brain. I love a lot of RFK's, what he's doing, what he's saying. He's a real good candidate for America.
Yeah.
And yet one of the most obvious things in the world, this idea of BTC as a store of value, it's just going to turn to ashes in that treasury.
Yeah.
So, anyway, RFK, catch a wake up, bud.
Def, man. Him and the rest, Mr. G. Cool. Yeah, Mr. G, I think we're ready to step into our next one.
Okay. All right. That was a quote, interesting quote. He's talking about backing the United States dollar with hard money.
Yeah.
He talks about precious metals.
Yeah.
And he talks about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so, again, here he's right on the idea of a sound money system, backing it with precious metals. Gold and silver, they've been money for millennia.
Yeah.
And only really, in the last 100 years have governments moved away from gold money. And the thought there is that if you have money that's backed by an asset, it makes it impossible to be able to just arbitrarily inflate the supply of currency.
Yeah.
And so here again, this is a strategy of RFK's to reduce inflation, because when you tie your currency to an asset, you can't just go and create more. If you want to go and spend more money, you've got to raise that money through taxation or through borrowing.
Yeah.
And so here, again, this must resonate so much with all the Bitcoiners in that conference.
Definitely.
Trump, funny enough, said that people think that Bitcoin is a threat to the United States dollar. And that is precisely what crypto people believe and hope. They want it to be a threat to the US dollar.
Yeah.
Well, Trump made the surprising comment in that last talk, the last show. Please check it out.
Yeah.
He talks about it not being a threat to the US dollar. Well, what Kennedy is doing now, he's taking a little bit of a different approach. He's saying, in this case, they want to back the US dollar with Bitcoin.
With Bitcoin, yeah.
And so that's quite different from replacing the United States dollar with Bitcoin.
Completely, yeah.
Let's go back a bit to a time when the United States dollar, all it was an amount of gold. A dollar is a weight.
It's a weight.
It's like a kilogram or a liter.
Yeah.
And so a dollar was a weight of gold.
Yeah.
So if you had a note for $1, you could go and redeem that note for $1 worth of gold, which was, I don't know, a couple grams perhaps.
Yeah.
So what he's saying here is that what we want to do is the same for the US dollar with Bitcoin. We want to have our notes once again tied to a precious metal standard. So go back to how it was, and it just resonates with people who understand inflation and know that one of the biggest problems on earth really is inflation.
Yeah.
So he is saying we're going to quit inflation. We're going to back it by gold and silver and Bitcoin.
Bitcoin,
Yes.
yeah.
And so there we go. He's betraying his understanding of Bitcoin. He clearly has read the Bitcoin Standard by Safedin Amos. His claim to fame was writing a book about Bitcoin being a standard like gold.
Gold, yeah.
So he must have read that book and spoken to other people in the Bitcoin and BTC crowd. I keep saying Bitcoin, but I always mean to say BTC. There's a very big difference.
Huge difference. Huge.
So every time this conference they talk about Bitcoin, they're talking about BTC. They should call it the BTC Nashville Conference. Anyway,
they should be specific, yeah.
They should be.
Yeah.
So here we go. He's now saying, let's also back the United States dollar with BTC.
Yeah.
And so that's just betraying that he thinks of BTC also being a sound asset like gold. And really, how do Bitcoiners or cryptards get to a sound money concept when they're talking about BTC? Really, at the end of the day, it comes down to its scarcity.
Yeah.
That really is the only argument that people in crypto have for BTC being a sound money system.
Because there's nothing, if you were to lay down all the characteristics, clearly there's only just one when it comes to BTC, because it would be the supply.
Yes, they only have the supply. They say this is a fixed supply. It's a digital asset with a fixed supply.
Yeah.
And gold has a fixed supply.
Yeah.
It depends if Elon Musk can get a rocket up to a comet and bring it back down. Who knows? Maybe that's given the pace of things in the world, that might be around the corner.
Might be possible.
Especially with Starship.
With Starship, they probably landed on some planet. They're already excavating.
Yeah, they got plans. So he's now saying Bitcoin is a sound money system, and of course, again, gold has a natural demand. It's a useful metal. People keep it around the world. It's been known for thousands of years as a store of value. Here he is equating Bitcoin, BTC, to gold, not even giving one consideration to the fact that, unlike gold, BTC can go to zero tomorrow.
There's no backing value to it.
Exactly. The value is propped up with wishful thinking.
For real, Ms. G, because honestly, if we were to take it back, let's put everything that you know aside and let's assess the tech for what it is and be a baby about it. This just makes sense that, BSV is the real protocol regarding all the aspects, whether it's the fees, the scalability and everything. But when it comes to BTC, there's
none of that.
There's none of that.
Yeah.
And one thing I find it so confusing, because I guess it's the trickery there, just compared to anything valuable, and if it sounds good to people, because if you're going to compare it to gold, that sounds good to someone else.
Yes, it reminds me of a quote by economist Thomas Sowell.
Yeah.
He's still alive, actually. He must be close to 100 now.
Yeah.
And there's a famous quote of his saying that history is a story of replacing what works with what sounds good.
Exactly.
Something like that.
That's spot on.
Yeah.
That's spot on, because here we are, we don't deny the fact that our current financial system is flawed and could be bettered. Hence, we have BSV.
Yes.
But we need to also understand that it was built with aspects in place that needed to be considered, whether it's the law, regulation, protection of consumers, and all of that. And when all of that is overlooked, it's like, what are we talking about now?
Right. When we talk about Bitcoin SV, we always talk about something that has fundamental value.
Yeah.
If RFK was talking about Bitcoin SV, I don't think I'd have a problem with his speech. Because Bitcoin SV is fundamentally different from BTC. BSV isn't trying to sell its scarcity.
Yeah.
What BSV is demonstrating is utility. It is a commodity in the same way gold is a commodity.
Yes.
Where a commodity is a quantity of something that can be used. And with BSV, unlike BTC, it actually has value as something that's useful to us.
Yeah.
With BSV, there is a ledger that is incredibly efficient, that is very useful in business, can reduce the cost of transactions, can ensure data has integrity, where you can trace things through a supply chain, you can create immutable logs, security logs, so you can make sure hackers don't get in. There's just 1,000,001 different use cases for BSV, as well as being a scarce asset.
Yeah.
And so when people discover the utility of BSV and they want to actually use the ledger, they're going to be looking around and saying, how do we use this ledger? Oh, we need the BSV token.
I like how you actually laid it out, because you mentioned the value and then the scarcity. Because with BTC, that's the first thing that pops in mind, the scarcity. The only thing.
Yes, because if you have a BSV, why would you hold that?
Yeah.
Well, either because you want to use that BSV ledger, the Bitcoin SV ledger, or you know that somebody else is going to want to use that Bitcoin ledger at some point in the future.
Yeah.
So that BSV token becomes a perfect store of value, because you know that at some point either you or somebody else is going to want to use that token to do some kind of activity, business activity or something.
Yeah.
So here we now have a digital asset that has fundamental value. It can write information to this blockchain ledger.
Yeah.
It is limited in supply, which means the more people want to use this ledger, the more valuable the token is going to become. And so here we have something that behaves very much like gold, much more similar to gold than BTC.
Yeah.
Yes, BTC can be a medium of exchange. Yes, it's durable. Yes, it's divisible. You know, I'm rattling off all the list of things that make something good money.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the commodity value, the actual value, either it's linked to something of value or it itself is value, BTC falls short.
Completely.
And that's why by taking BTC and calling it an asset, that's a huge stretch.
It is.
Because really you're saying, well, I now want to believe in a world where I can have something that is limited in supply. It can't do anything for me. But this kind of collective hypnosis is going to take over everybody. And we're all going to believe. In fact, very often when you talk to BTC people, they say that it's a belief system. You know, they do. They'll say, no, money is just a belief. If we believe something has value, it has value.
That's funny.
Yeah. Now tell me, it sounds a bit religious right now.
It is cultish more than anything.
A cult. If you want to go and have a look at a techno cult, check out those BTC conferences, and you want to see the high priests right now. I used to think it was guys like Michael Saylor and Max Kaiser who were at this conference, and we're definitely going to have a go at.
Yeah.
But the high priests have been fired, and now the big daddy-os have moved in. Trump and RFK are there, and we don't even need those other shills.
It doesn't get better, man. Like, it gets even worse.
Yes, we've got the cult. It's a Tom Jones cult. Everyone's going to be found one day, you know, with their hardware wallets all in a heap somewhere, hoping that the great big crypto spaghetti monster is going to come and pick them up and take them to crypto land. They're gonna be swimming around like Scrooge McDuck in their big money bin, you know, in their Bitcoin. Splashing
when
about.
He splashes. No, that's funny, because that's all a dream, Mr. G. I don't see it happening, because there's no value when it comes to BTC, yo. Like, I don't care who's famous and affiliates to it. We all know that. That's just a trick for pumpermental speculations. The normal culture in the BTC space, you know. Like we are saying, we're talking utility, and BSV is the only side of things where you see the utility happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right. I mean, just go and have a look at the BSV blockchain.org website. Look at the companies that are using Bitcoin SV the way Satoshi intended. Check to see how useful this coin is. You know, everybody who loves Bitcoin out there is a reason to love it.
Yeah.
The real Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But if you are just thinking of this as something that's going to make you money and it's going to make you rich, because guess what? Now Trump is on the campaign trail and RFK, and they're pumping your bags. Yeah. If this is all you're in for, well, guess what? Easy come, easy go.
Straight up.
If you want to go and actually find out how can you benefit from Bitcoin, and you want to become an expert and you want to see how you can leverage it and the amazing things, then get stuck in. Learn about it. Check what people are doing. Really understand it. Don't go to these crypto conferences. Don't listen to Trump. Don't listen to RFK. Don't listen to, every single person on that stage.
All of them.
They have missed it. There's a famous quote, the mainstream is always wrong. Guess what now? BTC is mainstream, everybody.
By the way.
You guys aren't the fringe. You guys aren't the cool kids anymore. You're the masses. You're just like everybody else.
Straight up.
A bunch of ignorant masses. A bunch of sheep heading for the cliff. You know?
Straight up.
And we've got Kage and Lorien heading the other way saying, turn back now.
That way.
Moon. There's a bunch of cows moving off. They're mooing. They're mooning.
Probably getting a haircut through a guillotine.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ms. G, I mean, with that being said, guys, remember to check out the real BSV wallet on the stores, and also remember to plug your friends, show some love, comment, subscribe, yeah? Mobile money on fire. We can step into our next one.
All right, let's do this.
Cool.
On day one as president, I will also sign an executive order directing the IRS to treat Bitcoin as an eligible asset for 1031 exchange into real property.
All right, so he has now said that if he's elected, of course, he's going to instruct the regulators, the IRS, to treat Bitcoin the same as property. There's a rule in America, the 1031 rule that he refers to, where if you have property and there is a gain, so let's say the value of that property goes up.
Yeah.
Normally, if you were to sell that property, you would be liable for capital gains tax. And so what he is saying here, he's saying that he's going to treat Bitcoin, BTC, in the same way as property, meaning that if you do sell Bitcoin, of course, you're liable for a capital gains tax. But under 1031, if you take that Bitcoin and you purchase property like real estate, then you won't be liable for that capital gains. Because what you're doing is you are taking the value of one asset and using that to purchase the same kind of property.
Yeah.
So I guess in US law, they say, well, it's not like you've made a gain in any way.
Yeah.
All you've done is you've taken one property and you've swapped it out for another property.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about the capital gains on that. If you were to sell that second property, yes, of course, there'd be capital gains. But what RFK is saying is that if you have Bitcoin and the Bitcoin doubles in price or triples in price or 10x's in price, and you go and buy some real estate, buy an apartment, then you won't have to pay any taxes on that.
That's a heavy promise, Mr.
Well, this is, of course, now the best thing for people who hold Bitcoin, because they can say, okay, finally, this is kind of an investment.
Yeah.
It's not like I can invest in BTC and then it can go up in value, and then when I want to now sell it and get those gains, I have to now pay all this tax.
Yeah.
What he's saying is that you won't have to pay any tax. If you take that Bitcoin and you go and buy that property, no problem.
Jeez.
So this is trying to create an environment, I guess. Maybe he's not specifically trying to do this, but this clearly will create an environment where people look more seriously at BTC as a kind of investment, because whenever they want to get out, they're not going to have to deal with the tax implications of that.
Yeah.
They can easily transition from BTC into a property, and they won't have to worry about any taxes on that. So it just gives more confidence to the investor community, a little bit more stability in thinking, great, we can do this, we can buy BTC, it can go up in value, and I'm not going to have to pay this big hefty tax bill.
But what are we talking about here, Mr. Chi? Because we need to be talking value, and if we're talking property, that's a real asset. We just mentioned that BTC has no form of value, so how does that become easily equated to property?
Yes, I think he's been watching too many Michael Saylor talks.
For real.
And this sounds like a Michael Saylor thing, who we are going to tackle one day, good and proper.
We have to.
But yes, so you're right.
Yeah.
Good observation. Property is something that is a physical thing.
Honestly, Mr. J, it seems like a new loophole now he's trying to create.
Well, he's created a specific loophole
Yeah.
in terms of reporting those transactions. I think there's another quote where he mentions reporting on transactions. So let's listen to that quote.
On day one as president, I will sign also an executive order directing the IRS to issue public guidelines that all transactions between Bitcoin and the US dollar are unreportable transactions. And by extension, non-taxable.
All right, pretty impressive. There he's promising that you're not going to have to report any of your crypto transactions.
With that being said, we might as well just reinstate, what's that website where we were?
Silk Road.
Silk Road, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because clearly we don't need any form of regulation and stuff, so Might as well be a party.
I think what you're referring to is the potential for there to be money laundering, tax evasion.
I mean, Mr. G, if you're gonna, for me, it sounds like he's trying to facilitate all of those illicit activities that BSV is trying to tackle.
Yes. Look, I don't want the audience to get us wrong. It's not that we love government regulations and taxes and stuff. Actually, we have to admit we hate that stuff.
We do, yeah.
But we also acknowledge we live in the real world. And being a financial services company, we know what we have to do for the regulators, for them to get off our backs.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things is anti-money laundering controls. Now, if you just think about going back to his quote there, he's got some things that he is passionate about and are actually very good. He's obviously very determined to make a point about privacy. That government doesn't have any right to poke into your transaction history and see what you're buying and all that. And so that's what he wants. He wants a world where people can be private, and we agree with that. So that's a commendable thing there. And then, of course, this idea of taxes, as a politician, since time immemorial, tax has been a sore point. And so when a politician wants to come in, he always wants to promise that he's going to reduce taxes. And if you think about trading the cryptos on exchanges, one of the things, if you've done that, you've had to report those transactions. If you've been either through trading, as an income or capital gains,
you have to declare it.
You've got to declare it. And so what he's saying is that every single time you want to swap Bitcoin for local currency, US dollars, that's not going to be reportable. He wants to make sure that people can maintain their privacy and government is not snooping around, and also that the tax burden is relieved just somewhat. So these are all very positive things that anybody would embrace, of course. And so that's what he is going for. But as a financial services company, as we're mentioning, there are certain obligations that not just the tax man wants us to accomplish. A very important thing when it comes to crypto is the potential for there to be money laundering. And we don't want Bitcoin to be used by money launderers.
Definitely.
This tool is meant to benefit people. And of course, every single tool can be abused.
It can be,
So we have to always have that fine balance between making sure that the tool is being used the way it's supposed to be, and we're mitigating any issues that come along.
Definitely.
And when it comes to financial service regulations, I think it's going to take a lot more than RFK's belief in financial privacy to convince financial regulators that not reporting trades on crypto exchanges or transactions is going to not create some wonderful boom in the money laundering industry. Because one of the things that stops money launderers from using crypto is that it's very hard for them to exit out of it and get into crypto without having to provide some form of ID or for there to be some kind of report that states those trades. And so money launderers are deterred from using crypto because they can't move the kind of volume that they need through the system. But what RFK is saying is, guess what? It's open season, money launderers and drug dealers.
Because that's really how it sounded to me. It's like, guys, the market is open for all the laundromats. If you want to wash your money, basically, it's open.
That's right. That's what he's saying. So he's starting on one side, having this ideal for privacy and decentralization and sovereignty. But unfortunately, it seems that he's never been inside the financial services industry. And even Centbee, we're not a giant payments company. But we have users who are always trying to skirt around the controls and that. Now, we're not saying that they all are money launderers or criminals, but it's just the nature of things. When you have a tool like a financial service tool, you end up with people who try and exploit the loopholes.
Remember, every time we're speaking transactions, money moving and stuff, there's laws and regulations, and they differ even per country.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, it's good that he's pushing the privacy aspect and wanting to make it easier for people to feel secure in owning BTC. They're not going to have it confiscated. They're not going to have the government breathing down their necks. He really does want to create an environment that's conducive to Bitcoin growth. Of course, he's not talking about it from a utility point of view. He's not thinking about startups that need to now, start building solutions for people.
BTC's never talking technology.
Right.
Yeah.
All he's doing really is saying that he's going to make the environment conducive for investing. So if you want to invest in BTC or other cryptos, he's going to make a country that's conducive to that. But there's nothing about entrepreneurship here.
Yeah.
There's nothing about startups like Centbee who are trying to build solutions that can solve problems.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not the subject of this conference. I'd be interested to see if there was anybody talking about how Bitcoin can be used apart from as a digital store of value. There are some talks talking about scaling and that, so it'll be interesting to have a look at those. But of course, with 1 megabyte blocks, which they're committed to, and this idea of a protocol that can be changing over time, those things are never going to make investors comfortable or entrepreneurs comfortable to invest capital and time to build solutions on top of that blockchain. It's too unstable. Really, all we have here are politicians, as always, just trying to pander to the audience in front of them. This is a crypto conference. It's not a Bitcoin conference. Crypto. It's about decentralization and going to the moon. That's all it is, and that's all RFK is promising.
More like decentralization, because we've been clarifying the fact that when BTC speaks of decentralization, to their idea is just the limited block size and distribution, but never having to have entities that are actually, reputable and working and producing transactions and blocks that are eligible for the protocol, the original one, know?
Yeah, exactly. All right, should we check the next quote?
As a lifelong environmentalist, I embrace Bitcoin as a mechanism for incentivizing greater investments in green and renewable energy production. Critics of Bitcoin have wrongly cast it as an environmental threat because of its high energy demand. The opposite, of course, is true. Bitcoin miners are more sensitive to energy pricing than any other industry. This means that they can only survive in the marketplace by utilizing the cheapest energy, and that invariably means waste energy and surplus power. For example, methane from landfills would otherwise go into the atmosphere, but Bitcoin miners are uniquely able to harness it as an energy source. Bitcoin mining is also the ideal partner for renewable energy and variable power projects like wind and solar.
Okay, so he's talking about another hot topic in Bitcoin. One of the issues that people have about its propensity to consume enormous power stations worth of electricity. We know that one of the important things about Bitcoin is its transaction throughput, its volume. And with BTC at the moment at 7 transactions per second, with an enormous cost of electricity to mine those blocks with just a couple of transactions in them, of course, Bitcoin BTC is incredibly inefficient. And there's no escaping that fact. So, of course, when it comes to people who are BTC enthusiasts and want to see it grow, they know that they've got an issue on their hands. They have to try and convince people who might accept the digital store of value narrative, but they have an issue with the amount of electricity that gets consumed. And so now if RFK is going to be telling everybody that he's going to make an environment that's just great for Bitcoin, but not just an environment, he's going to literally be taking people's tax money to buy BTC for their strategic crypto stockpile. You've got to consider the eco-friendliness of it all. And of course, RFK, he's famous for taking out corporations who are ruining the environment. He's great for that. And he has to address this issue. So the thing that gets suggested is that there can be renewable resources, renewable energy sources. And actually, that is something that might solve a problem like this, the energy problem. But BTC has the energy problem. The way Satoshi designed Bitcoin doesn't have the energy problem. An important fact to note is that when it comes to Bitcoin SV transactions, the original Satoshi Nakamoto protocol, there are millions of transactions per second, not 7 or 5. Millions. And because of that, it means that the energy consumed for every transaction is tiny. when you only have 7 transactions per second, yes, then you calculate the kilowatt hours that are being consumed, you realize this is ridiculous. How can a Bitcoin transaction cost however many thousands of dollars to process?
Let alone, how would you even invest in, equipment and stuff? I mean, it doesn't sound like a feasible business model.
A business that is inefficient is a business that isn't going to succeed.
For real.
If there are efficiencies out there, this is the nature of entrepreneurship and competition, is that you're going to be outcompeted. And so BTC has a major issue that renewable resources are not going to solve. BSV, on the other hand, doesn't have an energy problem. BSV, millions of transactions per second. It is the most efficient, cost-effective, energy efficient network on Earth.
Yeah, because, I mean, the electricity conversation is literally coming up because there's a problem.
There's a problem.
Yeah, in the BTC space. But if actually we abided by the original protocol, we wouldn't be talking about electricity.
No.
At all. It wouldn't be a conversation.
That's right. If you go to a Bitcoin SV conference, then nobody cares about how much electricity is being consumed, because actually it's negligible.
It's not a problem at all.
Yeah. So this is a problem for BTC. RFK is going to have to address it. And of course, he does what a lot of people do when they have this issue. They hand wave and they throw renewable resources at it. Let the sun solve that problem, or the wind. I tell you what, RFK, I've got a solution for you. Just don't use BTC. Use BSV. There's a website called coin.dance, and on that website you can see the relative stats for the different Bitcoin versions. So there'll be BTC and Bitcoin Cash, and then there's Bitcoin SV, and you can then compare how they're doing. And it's very interesting because when you look at BTC, it has something like 90+% of the energy out of all blockchains. They're consuming 90% or 99%. I mean, it's a huge amount of the proportion that BTC has of the hash power.
That's crazy.
The electricity. And yet it's only got a tiny number of transactions. And then when you go and look at Bitcoin SV, you see that it's got a tiny amount of hash power.
Right.
And
the transactions are major.
And there's millions and millions of transactions. Now, what crypto people will say and what BTC people will say is they say, well, the value comes from all that energy. This is a Michael Saylor trope. He'll say there's so much energy that is used, and that means that the value of this network is proportional to the energy consumed. And so when we look at BTC at zillions of terahashes per second, and you look at that and you say, well, that's the value, that's the metric that we use to value. To me, that's not the value, that's the cost.
That's the cost.
Do you guys want to have a network that costs so much? Why not have a much smaller powered network and process many more transactions? Now, people will say, well, it's not secure. BTC is secure because of all the electricity that's just being used to mine these transactions. So that means in their mind, BTC is more secure because of
it uses more electricity.
More electricity, more hash power, more strength, more technology. They think of it as being more powerful, superior. But the way Satoshi Nakamoto built Bitcoin was not to secure the chain through electricity. It was through honesty. Nowhere in the white paper or in Satoshi's writing does he say that the security in Bitcoin is equal to the electricity that is consumed. It's always got to come down to honesty. So the security of Bitcoin is honesty, not energy or hash power.
And which is more a human attribute. And it also goes back to the people who are involved in the BTC space. Clearly, they're not upholding, what Satoshi was envisioning in terms of how the system should work, because it's all about honesty. And there's a lot of dishonesty that's running around the BTC space.
It's about honesty with BTC and it's about honesty with BSV. Now, we look at the hash rate on BSV, and we see that it's just a tiny fraction of the hash rate and hash power that is being consumed by BTC. And so people will say, well, BTC is more secured, has more hash power. There are still commercial enterprises behind that mining in BSV, and they don't want to lose that investment that they have made into BSV. No matter how big or how small, they don't want to lose it. And so what they are doing is they're behaving honestly. And that's why BSV is also secure, because it is also secured through honesty. The miners in Bitcoin don't want to lose that investment that they have put in place to be able to mine those transactions. So it's about honesty. This is the system. This is how the system works. It's not about electricity consumed. And in fact, if your blockchain is consuming so much electricity that you have to start talking about how to deal with this electricity, then as you say, Kage, you said it so well, then you've got a problem. So BSV doesn't have that problem.
Yeah.
It's secured like the way Satoshi intended, through honesty.
Yeah.
The energy consumed per transaction is a fraction of the cost of transactions on any other network.
Yeah.
Bitcoin SV, the way Satoshi intended, is the most energy efficient network on earth.
Yeah.
And all we've got in BTC is this dog, this old dog that is just begging to be put down.
Straight up, eh? Because it's not only, the consumed electricity. You also look at the fee attached to it. Everything is just blown out of proportion. Like nothing makes sense.
Everything's wrong. Nothing makes sense. It's the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
You drink that Kool-Aid, Kage, you're going to believe fairies exist.
Yeah, I swear, hey? Like, that's where they all are, because they're so out of touch with reality, Mr. G. That's why it confuses me every time when we talk about this. Every time I get to learn, like, from our conversations, like, even some things that I thought I knew, you iron them out, like, okay, actually, I stand to be corrected there. But these guys, like, there's no logic. I swear, Ms. G, come on now. Like, how are we going to compare gold to BTC or equate it to property or make it a promise of it being some form of a reserve? It doesn't make sense.
Everyone's trying to be too clever.
For real, hey.
They want to be these intellectuals who understand the intricacies of this complex technology.
But the more you appear dumb, because it's like you are so out of touch with what actually this tech was meant to be, or what it's meant to be understood as.
Yes.
It's
if
crazy.
You think about the story of the emperor and his new clothes.
Yeah.
That story there, these wise guys rock up in the kingdom and they go to the king and they say that we can make the most beautiful clothes that have ever existed. And the special thing about these clothes is that only clever people can see them. If you're stupid, you won't be able to see the clothes. And so the emperor puts on the clothes and then he goes for a parade downtown. Sorry, he thinks he puts them on.
Oh, snap.
Because there are none.
Oh, snap.
There are no clothes.
Yeah.
But he's fooled into thinking that these are invisible clothes. And he thinks, well, I can't see them, but I must be stupid. I don't admit that I'm too stupid that I can't see them. So I'm going to pretend that I can see them. I'm going to put them on and I'm going to parade downtown. And everybody that watches him, they don't appear stupid either. They can't see any clothes. This guy's naked, but they don't want to say so because they don't want to seem stupid. And it takes a kid, it takes a child, and that child, you know what that child represents? Common sense
and purity, Mr. G, and honesty.
Yes,
because they see it for what it is.
Yes.
And I like how you also like always compare to that. Guys, let's be kids about this and analyze it for what it is instead of trying to apply
mental gymnastics.
Yeah. Like just keep it at simple level of understanding. Like if we were to put a 5-year-old and we were to explain, they would probably like make a clear like conclusion of no, this is not money. There's no value here. We're talking about prominent people with probably, higher qualifications and stuff with business, multi-billion businesses.
Yeah, they're just too clever for their own good.
Too clever, Mr. G.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that honesty always prevails. So it's only a matter of time.
Facts prevail.
Straight up. And
the truth.
The truth always prevails, Mr. G. And BSV will definitely stand the test of time.
Yeah.
I don't know about BTC though.
That's for sure. I think there's definitely a crypto apocalypse, especially if neither RFK or Trump win. Everyone's now going to be gambling on those guys winning. And if they don't, that's it. It's overs, cadovers.
I swear. I think that's where it's at now because it's either the hope is with either or.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't either go that way, yeah, I know it's bye-bye.
You're going to get all these cryptards to finally vote.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we check the next quote?
Sure, let's do that, man.
Major Lowry points out that Bitcoin has been mischaracterized as money, when in fact it is a cyber defense system that will protect our online identities and data in cyberspace. Just as we have an Air Force to protect our skies and a Navy to protect our seas, Bitcoin can protect us against potential cyber attacks. It is a cyber defense weapon.
So yeah, cool, Ms. G. We spoke about protecting the currency with Bitcoin, but we need to understand the cyber attack side of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, RFK, he's not a complete fool. You know,
Yeah.
he's obviously picked up some nonsense from a lot of people probably at this conference.
Yeah.
And that's why he spoke to protecting currency with Bitcoin,
Yeah.
backing the currency with Bitcoin, treating it like gold.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, we're still going back to that narrative of Bitcoin is equivalent to gold.
That's right. So
Yeah.
he believes that to protect the currency here, we can have a sound money version of that. And he
Yeah.
talks about precious metals and Bitcoin. So to be fair, he's not off point on that, except for the fact he still thinks BTC is a store of value.
Yeah.
But then he talks about cyber attacks. And what's very interesting about this is now he's branching out of the BTC mindset, where this is just an asset that's just about storing your value and something that can grow in time and can be used as an asset, as property, to be able to trade for other properties. So he's on that trip and he's down that rabbit hole, and he's
Yeah.
probably never going to come out until, you know, he comes crashing down with the rest of them. Remember, he's also going to, you know, get hurt when this happens.
Big time.
The crypto apocalypse. But let's talk about the cybersecurity. And,
Yeah.
you know, of course, that's very interesting, especially when it comes to Bitcoin, BSV, Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because remember, this is a ledger that is immutable.
Yeah.
So when you write information to that ledger, it cannot change. So that's a very important property of the Bitcoin ledger.
Yeah.
And this is what's interesting in BSV right now, is companies are exploring this aspect of the blockchain,
Yeah.
where what you can do is you can have personal information that you might need to share with government or a service provider, or even just a bouncer at your bar or something,
Yeah.
local bar, where you have to provide some kind of identification, a photo, an ID document, your age, you know, if you want to get into the bar, or something like that. And normally what happens is you hand over the ID, it gets stored in a database, and then there's a potential for that database to get hacked. And now your personal information is out there. Suddenly there's identity theft and a whole lot of problems.
Yeah.
So when it comes to information, especially sensitive information, personal information you don't want everybody to know, except for those people perhaps that require it for you to be able to access something.
Yeah.
You want to be able to just give that information over, let them view it, let them verify that information, and then make sure that they don't capture that or be able to steal that or lose that information. And the incredible thing about Bitcoin SV, because it is a low cost transactional network,
Yeah.
it's possible to store information on that blockchain that can be used to verify identity and other personal information. So instead of having a database, and this is typically how it's done, there
Yeah.
are companies with databases and they store all the sensitive information. I mean, just think
Yeah.
about a bank or something.
Yeah.
That organization gets hacked.
And
And
we've had a couple of
so
incidents,
many.
like globally so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where personal information gets leaked, credit card information gets leaked.
Yep.
Data security is so critical and something that just they can't seem to solve.
Yeah.
There's always something that happens where
Yep.
there's a hack or something, and you can't protect it because you can make your systems 100% secure. Let's just say theoretically. But what happens if now you've got a disgruntled employee or something and information gets, or the guy gets social engineered?
Because it happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
You know, somebody phones in, pretends they're somebody, and then the support consultant does something like share some information. You can't avoid it. So Bitcoin has this ability to be able to store information that can be used to verify
Yeah.
your data.
Yeah.
So instead of you putting your information into a system, what you do is you retain that information. You have all your data, all your personal ID, all that kind of stuff. And then what you can do is you can write something to the blockchain that can be used to verify that information. So let's say, for example, you want to prove that you're over 18, you want to vote or something.
Yeah.
Then what you can do is you can go to the polling station and you can then look up a record on the blockchain that can be used to verify that you are over 18. You see,
Yeah,
without
yeah.
having to hand over the rest
physical,
of your ID.
yeah.
You know, maybe you don't need to show something there, your address, for example.
Yeah,
Why does
yeah.
the voter need to know your address? So what he's talking about here is that there's an issue. We've got cybersecurity attacks.
Yeah.
We've got personal data that gets leaked all the time. And one of the things he's learned about this is that Bitcoin is an immutable ledger. It's a public ledger. And that means that if you have verifying information, if you have a way to verify information, and on the Bitcoin blockchain, you can do things like have a hash of a document, which just means like a little fingerprint of that document on there, a little bit of data. But you can use that data to verify that your document has not changed, and there's no information that's changed, names or anything like that. You can detect if it's been manipulated. So he is seeing and pointing out a very cool aspect of the Bitcoin ledger, which is one of the reasons why it is a utility ledger, why it can be used for something. Now, BTC, it can't be.
Yeah, because I wanted to clarify that, when you're talking about how all data being inserted into a block and all the information for it being able to verify the transaction, that sounds impossible if you're talking a 1 megabyte block.
Yes, if you're talking about a $5 transaction fee and limited space in the blocks, it makes no sense. You can't do it.
Yeah, no, that clearly we are talking about BSV here.
Yes, we're talking about Satoshi's Bitcoin again. The reason why Satoshi's Bitcoin is truly valuable is because you can have information on there that can be used to verify your personal identity.
Yeah.
And by not sharing that identity, what a useful thing.
Yeah.
Eliminates the possibility that somebody can now take that information and abuse it and steal it.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
So just that one example that he referred to in his quote, he is now referring to Bitcoin and seeing that, yes, an immutable public ledger is a very useful thing.
Yeah.
But he's got that dissonance now, that cognitive dissonance in his mind. He doesn't understand that you can't do that on BTC, not for the cost and for the limited number of transactions that can go into the block.
Yeah.
If the whole world wanted to store a tiny bit of information to verify the ID, that's, let's just say 7 billion people, or let's just say 5, okay? Let's say 1 billion people. How long is it going to take you to get 1 billion transactions into BTC?
Oh.
If it's 7 times, so every 10 minutes, 7 times 6, that's every hour.
That's insane.
Times 24, times 365. Are we close to 1 billion yet?
No way. That's not even in our lifetime, Mr. G.
Yes.
Literally.
Exactly. So RFK, you're onto something. You do see value in Bitcoin.
But
you picked the wrong horse. You've got the lame ass horse that can't run.
He's on a Trojan horse.
He's on it. Yeah, exactly. You're on a Trojan horse, and all you're doing is you're just sneaking in a bunch of cryptards who are going to make tons of money at the expense of the rest of your citizens who you want to help so much. This is not a solution.
It's not.
BTC is not it. But wake up. Come and smell the Satoshi Nakamoto roses. Check out what Satoshi Nakamoto did. Forget about these people selling you crypto as a investment and all that. You're heading down the wrong track.
Jeez.
Come back home.
I mean, with everything that he said, I feel like this is the only right thing that he said, like regarding the tech.
Yes. Well, about the Bitcoin tech, the real Bitcoin tech.
The real Bitcoin tech, yes. I mean, like everything else has just been BTC related.
Yes, reserves and investing and by the way, I've got a whole bunch of crypto over here. Don't worry, I'm gonna make sure that Treasury buys my crypto. Come on, RFK, do better.
Much, yeah, there's too much conflict of interest there. Like a lot of hot air being blown. But like I'm saying, for me, the concluded part of this is that when he's talking about, this last point of cyber attacks, the technology being like the solution, he's correct without him being aware, of what he's talking about. But like you're saying, BSV can facilitate all of that, like into a possible future.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's just give our final thoughts on this whole thing.
Yeah.
And, we started off saying that we like RFK. He definitely sees a lot of problems, and he's calling out the problems, although all presidential candidates seem to call out the problems.
Yeah.
What matters is when they become elected and to see if they follow through on that. Yeah. Unfortunately, the chance of RFK getting in is pretty slim. I think he picked the wrong year to do that. Maybe he should have waited for Trump to move on.
Yeah.
But, he's making a lot of promises there. He's getting a lot of crypto people excited. Unfortunately, Trump probably heard his speech and came in and promised everyone all the same. So I don't know, RFK, you're going to have to try some other tactics there to win over the crypto people. You didn't promise them that you would turn America into the Bitcoin superpower. Trump got that first.
He did, yeah.
So you're going to have to beat superpower, Bitcoin superpower.
And pumping too much electricity now. We're going to be begging him to stop.
Yes. On one hand, it's great to see that this idea of Bitcoin, and to your point, that Bitcoin is totally now in the mainstream consciousness, unfortunately for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And it's going to be further tainted when all this house of cards comes tumbling down, and it will.
It will. It will.
Mark our words, and I don't have to be a fortune teller or somebody to be able to see the future to be able to tell you this.
Yeah.
A house of cards, the reason why it falls down is because it's got no stability. It's got no foundation. There's no fundamentals there. It's just a bunch of little cards stacked on top of each other precariously. This is the reality. And it would be great if RFK and Trump were talking about the real Bitcoin, because there I would say that they have a case to be made.
True.
A case to be made for protecting your currency, for ensuring that you can protect against cybersecurity attacks. And you can build a great nation with great opportunity, great entrepreneurs. You can make America great by allowing entrepreneurs to figure this out and find ways to solve problems.
Yeah.
But you're doing it all the wrong way. Instead of encouraging entrepreneurs to build businesses and find cool ways of using Bitcoin, you're just telling people who are desperate and greedy and opportunistic to just buy crypto. You're not helping anybody except a few people, a tiny, tiny number of people on this planet who actually hold crypto. That's all you are helping. It's so sad.
It is.
This could be so great.
It could be, Mr. G, because USA is a tech powerhouse. So imagine if, so much of all those resources was focused into actually building the real protocol, building on top of it. Geez, man, I think we wouldn't be having such conversations. There wouldn't be, I guess this podcast would be more about encouraging, people building more than us having to counter all these misconceptions out there.
That's right. Exactly. Well, thanks, crypto, for letting us come along and try and wade into this debate. It's playing out slowly but surely. I think it's going to be slow, and then things are going to happen fast. But it does seem that it's possible for people to remain in a collective delusion for many, many, many years. It has been many years.
It has been.
But eventually reality is going to come calling.
And
then people are going to be looking around for a real blockchain that can really do real, important, cool, valuable things. So guess what? It exists.
It does.
You don't have to go far. You can just start at the beginning. Start at the source. Where did all this come from? Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin white paper, his vision. That's why we support Satoshi's vision. That's the vision that's going to improve people's lives.
Because it's quite clear.
Yes.
It's a clear vision.
And millions of people's lives, not just a few elite people who got in early. We're not interested in those. We want to help everybody. The man in the street, the woman in the street, the kid who can hustle and earn some cash from overseas.
Up, that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. We're trying to wake everybody up.
That's why if you don't have the Centbee wallet, you're missing out. Just check it out, man. Get to explore the power of BSV, shop globally, send money globally, get paid globally, payment requests. So just check out the app, plug your friends. Remember, this is mobile money on fire, yo. Show some love. Cool. Ms. G, we're going to be stepping into this week's questions and feedback. Our first one comes from Doc Young June. And they're saying, I think BSV is a platform for currency with a good usability. Will BTC see an increase in demand?
Well, there we go. That's exactly what we've been saying, is that BSV is a platform for utility. In other words, you can do stuff with it cheaply, very cheaply. I mean, there's just so many use cases. Any business idea, you can write transactions immutably to the blockchain. Now they're visible, transparent, public. They can be used to verify information. There's just so many use cases. We can't go through them all. We always point people to bsvblockchain.org, and there is a project section there. And it shows, I don't know how many, 100 companies or something
over 400 or so.
And they're all doing stuff different in different industries. So there's just so many different things. And of course, he says in the comment about BTC, will there ever be demand for it? only speculative demand. I mean, right now, there's probably going to be demand if these candidates, Donald Trump and RFK, start, rising in the polls and start looking likely that they're going to win this election. You can believe it. There's going to be demand. Everybody's going to want to jump on that crypto train and ride it up to the moon, and then everyone's going to just get out in time, right? That's how it always works. At the top.
Before it crashes.
Yes. Just remember, there's an old phrase, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So if you got to decide where you are in this on this train, are you going to be a pig, or are you going to get out while the going's good? I mean, to be honest, and I hate to say it, but until the election, there's probably going to be massive excitement. If you start seeing Trump pulling ahead in the polls, everyone's going to have his promises in their mind. Quick, buy BTC, is going to win, and our bags are going to go to the moon. So yeah, well, that's the only demand, though. It's gambling. In the same way there's demand for casino chips when you're playing blackjack, there's going to be demand for BTC.
That's a dope analogy. Our second one comes from user. They're saying BTC is a fraudulent Ponzi.
Yes. Now, what is a Ponzi? A Ponzi is something where the way investors make money is that they get paid out from the contributions of other investors. Yeah. So, there is no actual value being created or profit being made. Yeah. And right now, I mean, that's exactly what BTC is. The only way you can make money on BTC is if somebody else is willing to pay for your BTC a higher price.
Yeah.
So that's it.
It's a fool's game, like we keep saying.
It's a greater fool strategy.
Yeah.
You are going to be buying BTC and you're going to be hoping that somebody comes in and pays you more for it. So that's where the value is coming. BTC is high in price, not because it's generated so much value for businesses. It's just because the hope that this thing is going to go higher and higher is still strong in so many people.
It's their belief system.
Yes, it's the belief. Remember, if you believe it hard enough, it'll become true. So yeah, it's definitely a fraudulent something. But what it's not is a revolution. It's not something that's a technical thing that's going to change the world and transform finance and transform asset ownership. It's none of those things. No. BTC is just a scam. But Bitcoin, real Bitcoin SV, Satoshi's Bitcoin, the one that is massively scalable, it's stable, an unchanging protocol to give you confidence. It is regulatory compliant. Those signatures are still attached to those transactions. BSV is going to be something that's transformative. And the reason why BSV is going to go up in value is because it's going to add so much value to the economy. That's the future, and that's where you should be.
And a future we can't deny. Straight up. Thanks for that, user. Our third one comes from John Ivy. They're saying, I want to see you on the advisory council 100%.
The Bitcoin Advisory Council. Thanks, John. I would love to be on that, although I would be a big buzz killer. They'd fire me on day one when I tell them that they're all a bunch of morons. At this stage, nobody wants to hear the truth. If you're not talking about moonbeams and Lambos and stuff, nobody wants to hear you. If you've clued up, though, if you've switched on and you've picked the right rabbit hole to go down,
like John,
like John, then you are going to find much success and happiness in that future. So be like John, everybody.
Straight up, man.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. That would be quite awesome to see you on the council, Mr. G. I mean, you are one of the most friendliest faces in this space.
with a tough pill to swallow. Tough message.
Our last one comes from M. Talon. They're saying SPV and IPv6 together are the future.
Yes. Just briefly, we won't get into this too much. IPv6, all that means is addresses on the internet. The way that the internet works today is that computers have an address. It's called an IP address. And the way that it was built back in the day is that there were only a certain number of these IP addresses, which means that when you have a device on the internet, it doesn't have its own address. It actually goes through the service provider, and the service provider has an address. But IPv6 is a new way of creating these addresses where we can have as many as we need so that every single device on the internet can have its own unique address. And the reason why that's so important is because if I'm connecting to you in an offline way, where I'm directly connecting to you, what matters is that we have a direct connection, that I can connect to you on your address, your device's address. That means there's not going to be the chance that there's somebody in the middle sniffing out and trying to do stuff. We need a direct connection if we're going to be making an offline payment.
It's like a peer-to-peer direct.
Yes, that's the peer-to-peer stuff, what we talk about when you talk about a peer-to-peer electronic cash. I need to be connected to you, not through a central server.
So it's like our devices are connected.
Our devices connect. I know your address. An IPv4, I can't. I have to go through the ISP, and I don't know what's going to happen to that traffic before it gets to you. So we need a direct connection, and thankfully IPv6 has been around for a while, and it's slowly being adopted around the world more and more. And once every device that we have that is connected to the internet has an IPv6 address, it means that we can use that simple payment verification process that was defined in the Bitcoin white paper, how we can verify transactions in an offline way. So we need to be able to connect, and we need to be able to verify the transactions. Because in an offline way, there's no verification. You don't know if I've spent those coins.
Nothing.
But Satoshi Nakamoto figured this out. So we need IPv6 so I can connect to you directly, and we need SPV, simple payment verification, so we can verify those payments, and then we've got peer-to-peer digital cash.
That seems like a beautiful world, because I can see how it works, like in all these use cases, Thanks for that, Ntshingila. Ms. G, I think we've come to the end of our show.
We appreciate everybody for coming and listening to this. We want to tackle a lot of the speakers at the Bitcoin Nashville 2024 conference, because those speakers are very well known, prominent people, Edward Snowden and the rest of them. And we want to make sure that every one of those controversial points that they've raised, we've been able to have a go at, and you can hear a different take. Everybody is on the same brand of Kool-Aid at that conference, and it's important to, if you want to really understand something, to get all sides of it, and that's what we are. The Centbee Show, we're not just a wallet that can be used around the world to make low-cost payments. We are embodying Satoshi Nakamoto's vision for Bitcoin as a digital cash for every person in the world to be able to make low-cost transactions. And so that's what Centbee is trying to create. We think of ourselves as Satoshi's wallet. If Satoshi was using a wallet, he would like to use Centbee, because that's what it's about. It's about payments, little micro payments for casual transactions, day-to-day living expenses, as well as sending money home to my loved ones, so I can support them without having to pay hefty bills on remittance costs. So Centbee is a wallet, but also the show, we want to make sure that you understand and you hear about Satoshi's vision, because you won't find it very much out there. There are a couple shows out there. There's the Coin Geek show with Kurt Walker Jr. He interviews a lot of people in the crypto space and the BSV space. So we highly recommend you go and watch the Coin Geek show with Kurt Walker Jr. He's the Bitcoin historian at the Bitcoin Association. So there's nobody out there that knows as much about the history of Bitcoin and what Satoshi intended. So we highly recommend that, as well as other channels. But we're all fighting a fight here. If you're a believer in Bitcoin, Satoshi's Bitcoin, you've got to think like a soldier now. We're in a war, and if we just let the crypto shills walk all over us, we will never see the wonderful thing that Satoshi created. It'll never come to light. We need people in the trenches trying to keep his vision alive, so that we can enter into that world that is a world that is just so productive and will enable so much good on the planet. BTC is sucking good out of the planet.
It has been for the past 15 years.
It sure has. And Bitcoin is there. It's waiting. It needs entrepreneurs. It needs people who understand Bitcoin to be able to come in. So if you think there's people out there that need to understand Satoshi's vision, share the show with them. Comment and subscribe. You can see we're reading comments here. We love your comments. We respond to your comments.
Definitely.
If you've got questions that we're not answering, if we say something that you think is stupid, tell us.
Correct us. Call us out.
We'll admit it. Okay, we don't know everything.
We don't. We really don't. But we are kind of clued up when it comes to BSV. But we are open to being corrected if we are wrong, Mr. G.
Exactly. So we welcome those comments, and also, those likes and those comments, they encourage us to keep doing what we're doing. We're not selling anything. We don't have any ads. We're not trying to monetize the channel.
Yeah.
We just want to spread information. And if you are letting us know by hitting that like button, then we are going to just be motivated to keep pushing. And it's actually a lot of hard work doing this. Hey, Kage?
It is, Mr. G.
So,
it takes a lot of our time, because we also, I feel like we are invested in putting the correct message out there.
Yeah, we sure are.
Yeah.
So get clued up, get your friends involved.
Straight up, the BSV plug, yo.
Yes, this is where the Satoshi soldiers convene, and we're very grateful for you guys watching.
Yeah.
Other than that, Kage,
Mr. G,
I guess I want to thank you for the show.
thank you.
It was fun going through these talks. We've still got a bunch more to do.
Yeah, there's
So
plenty.
we'll be tackling those over the coming weeks.
Yeah.
But other than that, I want to thank everybody for joining us here on the Centbee Show. Please come back soon.
How's the energy?
It's good energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, get some good energy. What's that after the weekend energy? It's like, can I have another weekend energy? All right.